You had brought that up tangentially, in a sense. You said that the police officers were being disgruntled by the process, or by the present incumbent district attorney.
Right.
Was this what you were talking about?
This is part of it. There are other problems also. This DA's office is very shy about trying cases, and they're giving very easy plea bargains to a lot of dangerous criminals. And police are very frustrated with this. The most visible example of this was Detective Sergeant Bonura from Pleasantville, who kept arresting the same person for burglary and then would see him out in the street. And just imagine you're a police officer, you're risking your life, you're arresting a dangerous person, a burglar, and then you succeed in arresting them. You hand them over to the DA's office, and then a week or two later, you see them walking down the block. It's infuriating. And he spoke out. He said that the DA's office does not keep their word, does not keep violent people in jail. And he was suspended and ultimately lost his job over it. And a lot of other members of law enforcement have been telling me the same thing, that the DA's office will not back the police up if they make a solid arrest. And I know that from talking to the Yonkers cops, that the Yonkers cops do not have a solid partner in the DA's office. And I want to be there to work with the Yonkers police and police all around this county to get dangerous criminals off the streets and keep them there.
You know, I tell you, I'm listening to you, and at the same time, it's painful to see or to recognize that there's so many situations in life where you can actually, question, let's say, the district attorney's office, whether it be here in Westchester County or some other place, and that things are going awry. I don't understand what created this, just the whole function, or rather the dysfunction everywhere. I see it in government. I see the bar of excellence reduced to such a low level that, you could trip over it and it's not a problem. But I'm impressed that you've taken the time and the effort to look into the machinations, the conduct of an office, and that you've come up with some remedies. Are there other situations that you find that need tweaking or total revamping?
There are. And the reason that I put a lot of thought into this is because this was the calling of my life. I went to law school just to be a prosecutor. And I worked first, while I was living in Westchester, I worked in the Queens DA's office, specializing in domestic violence, child abuse, and homicides. Then I worked in the Westchester DA's office, prosecuting mostly domestic violence and sex crimes. So I've seen two different offices, and I've seen how they work, what works, what doesn't work. And I also tried cases and worked with members of every department in this county. So I talk to them regularly, and I hear what they're telling me. So I get a lot of constant information. Another thing I'd like to do, because I was a domestic violence prosecutor, is I'd like to enhance the services for domestic violence victims. Victims of domestic violence are different than any other crime victim in that they're usually the victim of a pattern of abuse. It's usually not a one-time incident. And there are other issues besides just getting over the crime. There's emotional damage, obviously physical damage very often, but there's also problems such as the victim being financially dependent on the abuser. A lot of times they don't have the education or the job training to get out on their own. So we need to bring services to those victims to help them first emotionally, also to help them financially, maybe help them get job training, help them go back to school if necessary. Also, some of them may have immigration issues. A lot of them are afraid to report domestic violence abuse because they're afraid of immigration issues. So what other places have done around this county, around this country, is they've created what's called a family justice center, where all these services exist around Westchester, and we have excellent services around Westchester, but they're hard to reach and hard to know about. So what
you said, they were not in one local,
right? Exactly,
locally put together in one building.
Right, exactly. So I want to bring them all to one location with the DA's office, where you go. And I just visited the Family Justice Center in Queens. You walk in, there's a prosecutor, there's a police officer, there's a member of probation, there's someone from the domestic violence shelter, there's someone who pro bono will be a lawyer dealing with family issues, child care, child custody, possible divorce, immigration issues, job training, education training. And we save money also by having it under one roof, because you don't have overhead where all these agencies have to pay rent in different places. So I'd like to bring that to Westchester. It's a really good way of delivering services to victims in a one-stop method. And it helps them get services that they won't otherwise seek out.
We're speaking to Dan Schorr, who's running for Westchester County District Attorney. He's unopposed at the moment on the Republican line, and I wanted to ask you a question about that.
Sure.
But I should remind people we're on WVOX 1460 AM radio. This is the radio station that could and does. And we get out there at WVOX.com, so listen to us online as well. I wanted to understand from the voters' perspective, we have people running for office. So there'll be people running in the Democratic Party, there'll be people in the Republican Party, and then there are other parties as well. But when one votes for a district attorney, does one need to infuse the tenets of a particular party into the office of the district attorney, or is that superfluous? Is it really unimportant? So what are we voting for when we vote someone to become the district attorney?
You're voting.
What do we hope? What don't we know? Because we don't know. At least maybe I'm the only idiot out there, but I really believe that we don't know quite often who we vote for, why we vote for them, but they're on a list, and then we go down the line and we'll vote whatever party that is that we think we belong to. We may not even belong to them, but our parents did, so it's their legacy. So I don't know what we should be. What should be the template? How do we judge who would be best for us in that office?
Well, for district attorney, the question is who's going to keep us safer, and who's going to have ideas that's going to run the DA's office in a way that keeps violent criminals off the streets and also helps crime victims get services they need. And that's not a Republican or a Democratic thing. I started my career working for Richard Brown, the DA of Queens, who is a Democrat, and he's as hardcore pro-law enforcement as any person. So it's not that Republicans are more pro-law enforcement than Democrats or vice versa. It's really about the individual who's running and how they're going to structure the office. Janet DeFiore obviously ran as a Republican, and then she switched parties after she got elected.
Which makes it a little bit easier to say, are we voting for a party?
Right, and I don't think we are voting for a party. We're voting for the individual who is going to be a better district attorney in this county. And the ideas I'm talking about aren't Republican issues or Democratic issues, bringing services to victims, helping domestic violence victims get help they need, making sure that violent criminals are kept in jail, stopping easy plea bargains, and being pro-law enforcement, being a real partner with the police, which we don't have.
Party line doesn't, it doesn't, I guess it doesn't encroach into law, does it?
I don't think it does. I think... First of all, Westchester has a registration that leans Democrat, but Republicans have won every district attorney election since 1895. So clearly, it's not just based on party registration. Janet DeFiore won 4 years ago as a Republican, and then, as I said, she switched parties. So there's not a Republican way to fight crime. There's or a Democratic way to fight crime. There are really efficient evolutions in the criminal justice system, and it's a matter of implementing them and being responsive to the community. The DA also has to be someone who will come on shows such as yours or go to community forums or be able to pick up the phone and talk to a local police officer who makes an arrest. You need someone who's accessible and who listens to people, and someone who people in the community feel a connection to because they know that person's fighting for us to keep us safe.
Okay. Oh, we're just coming up. We have about another 4 minutes, so if people want to prepare to call us after the break, give us a call at 914-636-0110. And I beg you, please stay on topic, because I love my guests, but not everyone stays on topic. I was wondering well, is part of the job of the district attorney also to just get out there and reach out to the public and show them and teach them what it is that you're doing, and also bring back what is necessary? And also, from a financial perspective, do you have to also pay attention to the costs of incarcerating a lot of people? Are you gonna be like a proactive district attorney, espousing that we change drug laws or something like that? I mean, what is the role besides,
Right.
resetting or restructuring, which is so important?
There is an advocacy function on the part of the district attorney. There are certain laws that I'd like to see changed, especially with the registration of sex offenders. I conducted a lot of hearings where if a person commits a sex crime, a certain sex crime, they will have to register as a sex offender, and based on the level of how dangerous they're deemed to be, they have to have their name reported. People probably have heard this as Megan's Law. But there are a lot of reforms that need to be done. I'm actually speaking at a sex offender forum on Friday of this week in Yorktown at 10 in the morning. And one thing I like to change is if you're convicted of endangering the welfare of a child and there's a sexual component to it, it's not deemed an official sex crime, because the crime is not a sex crime. The crime is endangering the welfare of a child. And I want to see that changed. I want, if someone's convicted of endangering the welfare of a child and there's a sexual component to what they've done, even if it doesn't rise to the level of a per se sex crime, they should have to register under Megan's Law. So neighbors and police will know about this person and know where they are when they get out of jail. As far as being an advocate for, you were talking about budgeting, obviously the criminal justice system costs money, but we can't let that deter us from keeping people in jail and taking people to trial. Violent people, it costs a lot more if we let a violent person out and they commit another violent crime.